All right, good day, everybody. We're here with William Palmer from Tutor Perini. Will, how you doing?
Afternoon, how are you?
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for accepting our little impromptu podcast invitation.
My pleasure.
Um, Tutor Perini, obviously huge GC, $1 billion GC in the US. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
My background is I was raised in Canada, spent 45 years, first 45 years in the construction and real estate development industry. Came down to the United States in 1998 and worked for various companies such as Hunt Construction Group, AECOM Tishman, and then the last 10 years with Tutor Perini Corporation.
Very cool. Would you say you are familiar with the amount of risks that exist on projects?
I would say I am. I think the 9 of the last 11 projects have been all over $1 billion and
Wow.
very significant planning and preparation for these jobs. So we're blessed with a wonderful chairman who's had 60 plus years in this industry, Ron Tudor,
Right.
who has a wealth of intellectual knowledge and property. The only thing he hasn't done is he hasn't put it in a book and shared it with everybody.
There's no manual yet?
Not yet.
No?
There should be the Tutor Perini way. There's definitely a manual for that.
Interesting. So that brings up the interesting question of what we call in the industry sort of institutional memory, or remembering things once the people who have most of it in their head go. Can you give us examples of, how you guys are trying to mitigate this, the issue of, most of what we know how to do is still in someone's head?
Well, it's just become very apparent to us over the last year with the advent of AI that people started talking to our company about the advantage of using it, but recognizing that we did not have the tools in place or the gathering of information or data necessary to be able to help make us informed decisions and reduce risk. So we're in that quagmire right now of trying to catch up, recognizing the benefits of it, but we need the effort put into installing this information into a library. And I almost see it as a librarian role.
Yeah,
within
an
a company.
archivist job. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right.
Can you give us an example of maybe a time when you were like, gosh, this is a massive risk that we really could have avoided? I'm basically asking for a burn story or some fun story out of all the experience you have.
I think probably the big project up in SR 99 up in Seattle
Right.
was the largest project we had done at the time. It was the largest 58-foot diameter tunnel, and there was risk associated with the job that maybe we could have mitigated better if we had better information.
Yeah. So what do you think it's most useful to focus on risk? Most people would say in the pre-con phase or even in the bidding phase when you're putting it together, but some also say it's a lifelong thing. It's just whenever you do the next job, you got to make use of what you have.
Oh, I think there's many things. I say you mitigate risk by first of all looking at the owner,
Yeah.
the track record of the owner. You look at matching your capabilities and resources with the program. A lot of times
Yeah.
companies just get too excited about pursuing work and
Yeah,
kind
very
of sidestep some of the warning signs. It's very difficult to say no in our business.
Of course.
And
It's a
so
cash flow business. You got to bid work to make money.
exactly right.
Bid everything.
Utilities is a big, all the enabling work, utilities with projects. We had a project in Florida recently where an underground utility with Florida Power and Light wasn't documented on the drawings. We started construction, and it took a year for Florida Power and Light to remove their conduit,
Oh,
and so out of our control.
yeah.
And then you're fighting now with the county for the lost time.
So we're at a conference, the P3 conference, that's specifically to have owners and builders meet. What are some of the things that you think owners can also do to help better manage risks, at least before they put jobs to market, maybe not as complete as the example you just gave?
Well, I think specifically with P3, because it's so new in the United States, we find that each state is kind of reinventing the wheel and creating their own legislation and their own documentation and contracts. And that's problematic for us because everything changes. Where in Canada, it's been so defined for so long and all the provinces are aligned and the federal government has oversight and there's an alignment there too, which makes it easier to travel across the country. Here, California is different than Tennessee is different from Texas. And so it really requires a significant amount of legal presentation or work and effort. But construction is construction. It's not, the physical construction doesn't change state to state. It's the rules around it.
It's the deal flow. How do you get to a deal? You get the partners around the table.
Correct.
So is there some times when you guys look at a deal and you're like, that's too hairy, that's too unique, it's too complicated, we're not going to go?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that comes with experience.
Yeah.
Right. This comes from a company that has a significant amount of memory in one
Yeah.
person's.
Yeah, the book that doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tutor Perini way, which we're hopefully working towards
Yeah.
producing. But so it's an exciting time in our industry for this.
Yeah, totally. I really like your sort of open-mindedness around, we got these problems. The tech may not do everything, but there's certain problems it can certainly help with. Um, would you say that, it's a common position amongst others in the space around open-mindedness on tech and AI to better help with risk management?
I think so. I think that in the construction industry, you can look at example for software like Procore and that are pretty industry standard. However, this evolution of AI and how it can benefit your company is really something that you have to be aggressive with and look forward to.
Yeah.
You have to find people in your company that are excited about doing it and want to do it, and that's more
Champions internally.
typically the younger people coming out of college and stuff like that have the energy. And we just need a champion like your company to come in there and show them how to do it and put a roadmap in place.
It's funny. I like to say that when I started, over 10 years ago, most of my first gigs were, Excel sheets, Control F and PDFs, doing all the grunt work that not only do you not need to do with AI anymore, but actually the young people that are coming out of school don't want to do. That's not why they did civil engineering in the first place. They don't want to sit down and go do manual review of stuff because it's not a good use of time.
And it's also a really interesting time for our industry to start mind mapping our talent and succession plans.
Totally.
It's a very mature industry, as everybody knows. And what happens is when these people leave, that knowledge goes with them. Or you find yourself 3 or 4 years later calling them up saying, "Do you remember the bridge project we did?"
Absolutely. We've all been there. Oh, can you remember the name of the guy who did that thing? Oh, it's on his laptop. We don't have a copy of it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's moving beyond the, oh wait, we're about to lose this resource, let's capture everything, and moving closer to no, we're gathering it as we go. That's not ever going to be a concern anymore. Well, that's what we're trying to solve.
Correct. And it's mentorship. And the thing now is that if you can bring that information out of these more mature veterans in our industry of telling the story about the project and what went right and what went wrong, what innovation we used and things like that. In our industry, typically when the projects are over, everybody's anxious to move on to the next project because the civil work is so long. It's not
because it's how you make money. You gotta keep bidding and building jumps to make money.
Correct.
So
and then if projects aren't so successful, they really don't want to sit down and talk about
nobody. Some progress has been made around lessons learned about trying to learn from the past, but that usually ends up being a report that sits in a drive somewhere, and then does that get used? Maybe sometimes, but most often doesn't.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you think as an industry that's part of our resistance to change a little bit?
It is that it's generational, I think.
Okay.
Right? I think because typically in our industry, people stay in this industry in these same companies for 25, 30, 35 years.
Yeah.
They're very loyal to the company.
Absolutely.
And it's the stability that they like. And it's that generation, maybe it's the baby boom generation that enjoyed that. Where the kids coming out of college today are jumping over, they're interested, they're active, they're smart.
If they're not learning anymore, they don't find any passion anymore. Yeah. I mean, also, we're at a P3 conference. It's also true that jobs are getting bigger, riskier, scarier, more and more joint ventures, more and more passing on projects. There's also a pretty unique context where it's not just all the things we've talked about. It's just getting harder to make sense of what you should and shouldn't bid out there.
Well, I think you're quite right. I think the size of the projects is really becoming, it's imperative to us now that you have to start looking at strategic alliances or joint ventures.
Yeah.
You have to share and mitigate the risk. It's the resources. We're all resource poor. We're looking at jobs and you're making sure that you have the human capital to do the work. And timing is really important.
Yeah.
And we currently have about 23 billion in backlog right now. And we really can't start looking at doing work until the fourth quarter of 2027.
Wow.
Which is a great place to be. But what do we do with that time between now and then?
Yeah.
We could do things like invest in AI. We could bring our technology up to speed. We could look at hiring, bringing some bench strength on, training these people.
Organic growth.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that's also really important for owners to keep in mind because sometimes hey, I've just spent 5 years putting together this great project. They go to the market, they come there, you're like, oh no, my book of business is full for the next year and a half. There's so much out there right now. You can't expect me to bid on everything.
Well, a great example is Penn Station, the renovation. No one knew about that project till 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on any of our radar until
now you got to reshuffle the way your pipeline works. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and they're looking for competition. They got 3 bidders. And that's all there was. And one was already an unsolicited bid, so they really weren't going to do any more work than they already done.
Yeah.
But it puts tremendous pressure on us and puts tremendous pressure on them because instead of having 5 or 6 competitive bids.
Yeah, real process. Yeah.
It narrows it down and it makes it more expensive for them. And
Fewer options.
yeah,
Yeah. What you're kind of putting the nail on is the fact that we're in a business where if you just help one side of the negotiation table, just Tutor Perini, for example, or just other builders, but the owners don't get help, you get into the scenario like the Penn Station one you just gave. And that, I think, is a good illustration of the fact that, and this is also what we're trying to do at Enlaye, both sides of the negotiation table matters.
the other thing that's really interesting is that companies are shying away from risk. And we're a very risk-averse company.
Yeah, totally.
And it's really funny because if I always thought of the word contractor growing up, it was managing risk. And therefore you get.
You know what our tagline is? To build is to manage risk. That's literally all it is.
That's exactly right. And so companies have become very much general managers of subcontractors, whereas Tutor Perini, when we build our big civil work, we produce 60% of the work with our own forces.
60% self-perform.
Self-perform.
William, that's very rare. Most GCs are offloading most of it to subs.
It's very rare. And what happens is we control the schedule,
Yeah.
we control the price, we control the flow of work.
So is that because you're basically saying I want to keep my hand on these items of risk? I don't trust the other guy, or I don't want to be beholden to the other guy?
Correct. And it's, for example, we have one of the largest equipment fleets in Western U.S.
Yeah.
So we've built these resources over the years.
Yeah.
Our office in Guam, Black Construction, which does a lot of work with the military, we have 4,000 Philippine employees that we house in Guam, and when they come for 4 months and go back for a month.
Interesting.
So when we go compete for work,
Yeah.
if it's to build $1 billion dry dock submarine base, we have the resources, we have the equipment, we have the material, which puts us at a great competitive advantage. But that was the foresight of Ron Tutor.
Yeah.
So here we are playing in this wonderful market now where there's all kinds of incredible work.
Yeah. But you're still being selective about where you have a competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
You're not, more work doesn't mean you're going to bid all of it.
No.
Yeah, that's really important.
You'll see us, for example, Dodge reports $3 trillion worth of work over the next 4 years in all their vertical markets.
Yeah.
That's probably only 70% of the work that's out there that we know of.
Yeah.
And so you look at, what vertical markets you want to play in, where you want to play geographically. Do you want to play in non-union states? Do you want to play in just union states? So all factors that come into it, and that's you mitigating the risk.
It's interesting because people who don't necessarily know the built world, they're like, oh God, the minute they start looking into it, there's so many different variables, but that's the reality of getting projects off the ground. Okay, this is going to be my last question. What's the thing you think we waste the most time uselessly doing in our business right now?
Boy, that's a great question. Probably not doing the due diligence beforehand on identifying opportunities and really creating relationships with those owners, spending time. People like to do business with people they know.
It's a trust business.
So it's a trust business. So instead of just relying on the computer or the telephone and not actually having FaceTime and phone time, I'm old school that way. I still enjoy that.
I think that's true of the industry. So let me ask you a follow-up question. If there were, let's say, a tool like AI that made it possible for people to spend less time doing computer analysis and more time going out there, meeting owners, knowing what's coming, would that be a good use of resource?
Very, very beneficial, very beneficial. It's connecting all the dots. It's understanding not only the logistics, the politics, the financing, the funding, because the job's getting so complicated.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And there's so many people that now this tribe of people that you have to put together. And have you had experience working with them? And the risk of
it's
working
a different
with
tribe every time. It's a different job every time. Yeah,
correct.
It's like we don't reinvent the entire wheel, but a lot of the wheel gets reinvented every time.
It does.
So if we could stop wasting time doing menial tasks, we can do that.
Very productive.
Beautiful. William, thanks for your time. This has been really insightful conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.